Hey, everybody tuning in. I just wanted to say welcome to Encompass AV's COVID-19 webinar with some of the industry leaders in the hospitality industry. My name is Tim Pickett. I'm the president of Encompass Audio Visual. I have invited some of our clients in today into this webinar today to discuss the status of the hospitality industry and what is going on, what's happening, what they've done and what they're planning on doing in the future to help not only themselves, but each other and help their employees and, try to get through this thing. Just a little background on Encompass Audio Visual. We do low voltage and audio visual for the Chicagoland area. And actually we work nationwide with a lot of restaurant chains and hospitality groups. So without further ado, this is not about Encompass. This is about all of us coming together and, doing the absolute best we can in the hospitality industry, and trying to do, what's right for all the employees and trying to put people back to work. So real quickly and briefly, I'd like to introduce Steve Lombardo with the Gibsons Restaurant Group. He's the chairman and general counsel of the restaurant group. Steve, if you're there, can you give us just a little background on yourself and your company?
Sure. The Gibsons Restaurant Group is composed of 14 restaurants: Gibsons Bar and Steakhouse, Hugo's Frog Bar and Fish House, Lux Bar, Cortino, RL, Gibsons Italia, and the Boathouse. Most of our restaurants are here in Chicago, but we do have a couple outside of Illinois, in Philadelphia, and in Disney World in Florida. We're a family business. I'm joined the company only about 5 years ago, but have grown up in the business and really have been a part of it my whole life.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. Scott Wiener with the 50/50 group. He's the co-founder of the group. And I've been doing business with Scott and actually Steve since 2008. So we've had a long relationship. Scott, can you give me the lowdown of your background and the company?
So my name's Scott Wiener. I grew up here in Chicago suburbs and opened up our first place, the 50/50 Sports Bar, in March of 2008. So we just celebrated a very interesting 12-year anniversary with, closing down all of our restaurants for the most part. But we started with the 50/50. Currently we have 12 locations and 20 restaurant outlets within those locations. We're in construction still on more. And I handle a lot of the day-to-day operations, sort of all over the place. I opened up with one business partner, Greg Moore, who's been with me as well since 2008. Greg and I worked together prior to opening up this restaurant group, and all of our restaurants are in Chicago, and we have one property that's going to be outside of Chicago, planned to open next year in Toronto.
That's great. Thank you, Scott. Nathaniel Brethold. Nathaniel is with the Marquee group. They are responsible for the Hotel Zachary and Gallagher Way next to the historic Wrigley Field. Nathaniel, we've been working together since about 2016. Can you give me a little background on the lowdown?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. It's an honor to be with you all today. Again, Marquee Development is a real estate development firm from the Ricketts family. We started with a very small project out at Gallagher Way next to historic Wrigley Field. We have a beautiful campus, and my oversight is working with all these great restaurant partners that we actually brought on to be a part of that complex, including that hospitality arm of Hotel Zachary. But again, it's just an honor to be with you all, and I look forward to the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Nabil Moubayed with Kimpton Gray Hotel Groups. He's the director of Midwest operations. Nabil, we've worked together, not face-to-face ever, but we've done some work for you over at the Kimpton in Chicago. So if you give me your, I appreciate it.
Yeah, great to be here, and good to see Scott again. Scott and I have worked together here at the Kimpton Gray with his restaurant Steadfast, but I oversee operations for Kimpton hotels and restaurants in the Midwest. So we have 4 hotels in Chicago, the Allegro, the Palomar, the Monaco, and where I'm based, the Kimpton Gray, which opened about 4 years ago. And then we have Milwaukee and Cleveland as a couple of other locations. But we're part of Kimpton Hotels, and we're now part of IHG, which is a big Intercontinental Hotels Group brand with Crown Plazas, Holiday Inns, Intercons, Indigos, those type of hotels. But we're in that niche segment of boutique lifestyle hotels, and it's great to be on this panel. I look forward to talking about a few things we're doing.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, no, I really appreciate all of you joining. This is great. This is a great group. First off, I want to say, and I'm going to ask Steve, I'll start with you, but guys, feel free to chime in. Let's just have an open conversation about this. If you have thoughts or tangential thoughts. Steve, what was your first reaction when you realized the gravity of the situation? What was that emotion that you felt, and what was the first action that you kind of planned on taking? I know in my business, my heart dropped when I realized that I'm going to have to furlough some people, but if you could chime in on that.
Yeah, the first reaction was denial. I can't believe this is happening.
Right.
And then the next was, what are we going to do for our people? That was the first reaction. We ended up paying for our people to stay on for 2 weeks after the shutdown, just to get them settled. We did stay open for carry-out business and third-party delivery, but our revenues have been about 15%, 1.5 of normal. The hard decision was made after that, and Tim, I know you were not involved, but we used your facility to broadcast the message. We ended up having to furlough our people, about 80+% of them, 2 weeks after the shutdown.
Sure.
And now it's been just trying to survive since then.
Well, and I know that you guys donate $180,000 to a fund you started for your employees, which is very impressive, and I applaud you on that. That's really cool. Scott, I know you've been also doing amazing things for your employees. I mean, 20,000 meals served. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've raised some funding just from various initiatives to first start with feeding anybody who lost their job around Chicago. We did that out of the 50/50. And then we had opportunities to continue expanding those offerings. So we started using West Town Bakery to do that with Lee Initiative, Frontline, some different things. So, currently we're doing about 1,000 meals a day.
Wow.
We also are able to keep some people employed. Otherwise, it wouldn't be through that. And, Roots Pizza has also been open for a carry-out delivery during this. So we're doing the best we can under the circumstances. We've also been doing the best we can for our people. And, I'm sort of just looking at this right now is how do we emerge intact from the pandemic, and, really looking at it and saying the most important thing I can do is emerge intact and have a place where people will work when things do sort of loosen up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with Scott on that, where, one of the big things we continue to try to work on is making sure that we have business to come back to. And so for those people who are still on property and working, we've probably laid off between 95 and 97% of our employees right now, because our occupancy levels are around 1 to 5% a night. And that's a huge, massive drop from where we ever were. So we're trying to work really hard right now to rebook a lot of the business that had to cancel, and work with not only the city, but also the state to rebook conventions for next year, but also more locally, weddings and social events that want to still have their events, but can't do it right now, but they do want to rebook as soon as possible. So we're working hard on that so we can bring people back sooner. And we're staying in touch with our employees as much as possible through newsletters. We're putting together a wellness webinar next week for our employees to take part in, and then also working hard with our owners, because we all have different owners, to continue as much of the healthcare benefits and coverage that we can. So that's very important to us right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nathaniel, any thoughts? Same question.
Yeah, I mean, we're in kind of a different situation, just because we are owner, landlord. We have different relationships across the campus, but more importantly than anything, when this crisis started, we all got around a table and on the phone and Zoom calls and said, how are we going to be and continue to be one of the best partners and owners of the real estate that we've developed? You know, obviously we have the hotel. We wanted to make sure that those hotel patrons were being taken well care of. The decision was made by our hospitality partner to actually close that hotel. And so we just worked with everybody. You know, Scott is a partner in one of our restaurants as well. And, you know, we feel that we did a really good job in just, you know, being very transparent with our partners that we actually had in the campus and try to make this as easy as possible for them to shut down, make sure that we took a little bit of weight or a lot of weight off their shoulders in terms of like, you know, their psyche of like, how is this going to look like when we reopen? And then we are really on the receiving end of listening to the narrative of what's happening out in the market to really take the lead from our partners of exactly what they need from us in order to be successful when they reopen on the other side of it.
Great. Yeah, I think you guys really touched on a key point there, Nabil. You know, being here later so people have jobs to come back to, and all of us, I mean, that's a big deal. It's, you know, yeah, you have to, you know, take some people off the table right now. And, you know, I know one of the things I personally struggled with is, yeah, I have to let these people go. But if I do let them go, they can at least file for unemployment. Whereas if I keep them on and they have no hours, how does that help, right? So, you know, we let some people go and it was a tough decision and it hurt my heart because they've been most of them been with us for over 3 years. But yeah, it was the right move. So, I mean, you guys touched on this a lot. What the current state of your operations is. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that. Steve, I know that I think Steve, you found a new business in prepackaged meat.
Yeah.
I've seen so much social media on Gibsons meat. I mean, which is, you know, your own prime, you know, grading, which is awesome. You know, what's real quickly, if there's any current operations that you guys are all doing that you didn't think would happen, you know, please chime in.
Sure. In addition to the grocery type items, group family meals are something that we've delved into and the consumer seems to be interested in. You know, a pre-prep meal for 4 that they can buy for 1 price. Couple other interesting areas. You know, we've been working with first responders and healthcare workers, providing meals to them. Well, we've done some of those, you know, charitably, but there's a lot of people who want to sponsor them. So yeah, people who are willing to pay for them, other businesses, that's been great. Our private dining, which is, you know, non-existent right now, they've been out hustling for business with large groups like construction sites or just large where their businesses where there's large groups and the employers are wanting to provide meals for them because so many places are closed. We've got some people who are in our organization who've come up with some creative, lower cost, you know, meal options for large groups, and that's been helping as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Scott, anything pop up with that you didn't expect? Things that happened that you weren't kind of predicting when this went down?
Yeah, I echo Steve. We've actually, you know, been seeing a lot of people want to sponsor first responders, and you know, some of that being at the National Guard.
Nice.
You know, the Marquee development teams also helped with a lot of that as well.
Awesome.
So, you know, I think that from a business, I don't want to say business growth, but right, just from a business survival standpoint, yeah, we've had some interesting opportunities pop up. You know, I would say that where we've had in terms of just redefining and changing our business model, Roots Pizza has been very busy. We've seen our own app, which is meant to sort of counteract some of the charges that we pay the you know, third-party companies such as the GrubHubs, et cetera.
Yeah.
We've really focused our efforts towards growing growing that and driving people to that more so than ever. And we've seen a tremendous spike in users on that, which has been great. It also has given us a direct way to communicate with our customers and our guests. And, so it's been a big focus for us. And,
Sure.
In terms of sanitation work, Roots is a concept that already does between 20 and 30% of its business in carry out, depending on the time of year. So obviously right now that's 100%, but we've had to change the way we do things though. No customers allowed in our facilities at this point. Thankfully we have big windows or garage doors. We've been able to do carry out. We're planning on rolling out curbside over the next 6 months. We rolled that out in a week. Obviously it's a lot easier to do when there's nobody in the restaurant.
Right.
But we've had to rethink our operations. We have temperature logs now, not just for our coolers, but also for our employees. And, nobody walks in the door without getting a temperature check. So there's been a lot of changes to the way we've had to look at our business and also redefine what hospitality is right now.
Yeah. And I want to bring up something real quick. And this was completely, this is just tangential. How do you guys feel about these, the GrubHubs, taking, the news has been like, upwards of 30% from you. I don't think people realized how much they cut into your profit margins, these delivery services. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I've been pretty active in that world with, with the Illinois Restaurant Association, as well as personally and through my group. I think transparency is the transparency of the actual fees that these companies do take, I think is something that will come out of this pandemic as being either something that they're required to tell the customers. I don't know in terms of fees or anything like that if that's ever going to change, but I think people are more aware now that there is a cost to ordering from these third parties. And, there's also been some interesting things that have come around on the ghost kitchen side too.
Got it. Yeah, I know that. When I read about that, I knew that they took some money, but I don't think I ever realized how much they took. Now, of course, you guys have different margins and different business models than I do, but I couldn't afford anybody taking 30% out of one of our invoices ever. We would immediately, go negative. And so I know that in a way it's got to be cutting close, and it just becomes more of a convenience at that point when people use these services for you than you actually, profiting and making money. And correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but it seems steep. All right, moving on. So we know the right now. What does this thing look like 30 days, 60 days from now? We're all operating in Illinois. We know what's going on. We just were, told to stay inside for another 30 days. Non-essential businesses, same kind of thing as we just experienced all April. What is that? Maybe Nabil, we can go to you for a second. What is your reentry strategy?
Yeah, so we're looking at it as sort of as almost like in baby steps, where you're crawling first, and then you start to walk, and then hopefully you'll start running again. And so our crawl phase, which is going to probably last for 3 months roughly, is going to be slowly creating that sense of safety and security for our customers and our employees, actually, that they feel really safe with us, their brand, Kimpton,
Sure.
and feel like when they're walking through the door that they know all of the bases are covered. So all the way from cleanliness protocols to signage, to making sure the social distancing is in order, wearing masks, wearing gloves. So we want to make sure that they feel that when they're coming into our hotel or our restaurants or our bars, that, well, first of all, we have to make sure we're following the local state laws.
Yes.
That's most important. But then we're reimagining, like Scott said, reimagining our business. So making sure our living room areas and our meeting space has the appropriate setup. So we're looking now at, let's say, customers looking for a 50-person meeting. They're going to probably have to use a much bigger space than we typically would have given them. So reimagining how we're going to lay out that space and drawing it up for them and making them really aware of where we're going to put things and what we have in place. So we're seeing a lot of people that are buying into the brands because they know brands will take care of, typically take care of those big items. And so we're working hard as a team to then also localize it, to then say, okay, this is the bigger picture that the brand is giving us, but how can we make that fit into our unique scenario that we have in each property? And so, so we're really working hard to convey that message to our customers that are actually wanting to rebook with us, to make sure they feel really confident that we have it covered for them. And so far, it's been really, really positive response, and we've been happy about that.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Nathaniel, you're kind of in the, Hotel Zachary is one of your, one of your big properties, or I know you're a little bit different part of the management as, as the landlord more of, but do you have any thoughts on that? What's your, what are your tenants? What are their midterm goals? Like, what are they going to do? 60 days down the road?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As I stated before, like, we're really in the listening end of this and really leaning on our hospitality partners to make the great decisions that they've made. We, in our position as the developer, we're really looking at what this economic landscape is going to look like. And we're trying our best, when the narrative changes daily, as we know, of exactly what is going to happen. So we're trying to forecast this as the best of our ability, 30, 60, 90 days out, listening to all the hospitality partners. I'm on every single independent restaurant coalition call just to try to get as much feedback as we can, to really try to not only educate our partners, but also be educated by our partners to find out what the best practice that they're going to be initiating. We have a Marriott franchise hotel. Hotel Zachary is a Marriott franchise. So we're getting a lot of information of exactly what those standards are going to be rolled out, very similar to what Nabil is dealing with in the Intercontinental IHG brand. And it is going to be a very different operating model. And I'm constantly inspired by seeing all these restaurant partners come to the table and coming up with, their different ways of operating. There was an article that just came out about a restaurant in Logan Square that, because they know that they're a very small restaurant, they will not be able to reopen the same way that they did. They had to completely revitalize their entire restaurant operating model for the foreseeable future until things like the science allows them to make people feel more comfortable. And really getting back to that whole root of what we all are in the hospitality business is we are in the people services business. We have to make sure that not just our guests, but our employees are comfortable coming to work. They're safe, they're secure. And this is why we are very inspired by seeing all these partners that we have in the complex and abroad really make sure that their guests and their employees are the ones.
Right. No, that makes sense. Steve and Scott, I know we were just talking about really the wellness, the health factor with Nathaniel and Nabil. What about the financial factor? What about, reopening in 60 days, but people don't have the same kind of expendable income as they had before? What is that? What, are you guys making any predictions on, how that's going to roll out, how that model's going to play out?
Yeah, you've got three sort of factors. There's the regulatory aspect. I think Nabil is right, and based on what we're seeing in other states and other countries, there's going to be a phased set of openings, right? You're going to be allowed to open a certain amount, then a little more, then a little more, then full boat at some point. There's the customer's willingness to accept the hygiene and the sanitation issues. And by the way, this is going to be very much generational and age-based. All the surveys I'm seeing are saying if you're a millennial or younger, they don't care. None of them, but 2/3 of them, 3/4 of them are going to be out as soon as the restrictions are lifted, and they don't care about social distancing because it doesn't apply to them, and it shouldn't have to apply to them because it doesn't matter to them. They're not at risk. Right. If you're 60 and over, or you have a comorbidity, you might be in your house for 2 years until there's a vaccine or a cure or something. That's an issue. That's a real issue. But from the economic standpoint, it's anybody's guess. we fared okay during the '08 recession. We had most of our restaurants were basically flat. Maybe down, a couple of them were down a little bit, but nothing like what we're seeing right now. Some were up, and you're going to see, and this is going to sound really, it's just sort of the reality of the situation is there's a lot of restaurants that are going to be closed and will not survive this. There's going to be the same number of diners or people that need to eat, and they may be eating at home, but there's going to be a lot fewer restaurants. So there's going to, I don't know where that falls along the supply-demand curve, where it's going to end up, but there's certainly going to be a demand for people. They're going to want to go out. People have been locked up. The beauty of the human condition is we have short memories. Now, this is not 60 days out. This is
right.
a year out, but we have short memories. I think a lot of this is going to be forgotten in a couple of years. Not that we went through it, but just like people saying that this is going to change things forever, it's really not. It's going to change things for a period of time, and then eventually it will go back to normal. That's what I believe.
Scott, any input on that?
Yeah, no, I'm very much the same frame of mind as Stephen. I think that there's going to be a quicker return in the neighborhoods. I am a little bit more concerned about some of our tourism-based private events and those properties. I agree. I think some of the younger people out there aren't going to be as concerned. And I also think that the news cycle can change on a dime. Just today we're hearing about, Gilead and treatments, and every single day the hospitals are getting better and better and more effective in treating this. Whereas, 2 weeks ago, potentially this could have been a death sentence for certain people. And now we're learning that it really may not be. And the ingenuity of people in this country and people around the world, I think, are going to make this something in my best and most optimistic, thoughts. I think that this is something that within 3 to 6 months, you may see more of a return to normalcy than, you could have ever thought. Now, I think there is going to be permanent damage, as Stephen said. I think a lot of restaurants won't come back.
Right.
But I mean, ultimately, people want to be around people. That's never going to change. That's just the way the world is, I think. So, people are still going to try to meet girls in a bar,
No.
Absolutely.
No.
People are still going to go out on business dinners, and I appreciate that we're able to do this over Zoom today. And I think that's also going to become a little bit more utilized, but ultimately I think that society will get back to normal. It's just a matter of when.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, I agree. I mean, within the Kimpton family, we always talk about creating sort of these heartfelt human connections, and staying human is sort of our big campaign that we always run, because we truly do believe that at the end of the day, no matter how much technology you're going to have and how much, you're able to be more efficient, there's still a huge component of, as Scott said, in our lives, in our world of needing to be around each other. And I know there's going to be some questions asked about how technology is going to change in terms of, people wanting to maybe use their smartphones with a key to enter their door and bypass the front desk and all that. But at the end of the day, people are still going to want to go to a bar or a restaurant or meet together, because that's the way you can truly gauge other people's reactions and feelings and emotions. And that's something you just can't do over these forums over a long period of time, I believe. And so we're banking on a recovery as well, and hopefully in less than a year, and slowly building up to be able to manage the expectations of our customers in a way that, again, that they feel confident to choose us as one of the options out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we're all missing that, that personal touch right now with other people, especially, people who may be single, or, people without, like, they just don't have interaction, right, with people right now. I think that when they do allow the restaurants to open up again, even if you guys have limited capacities, you may have lines out the door, you know, people waiting to get in, you know, like it's a VIP nightclub, because I think people are really missing that personal touch, you know, and hanging out and talking with somebody they've never met before and having a couple glasses of wine. I know I had to go downtown yesterday, and we were doing a project with Radisson Hotel down there. And I thought about it, like, man, I haven't been down here forever because I live in the suburbs. And I'm like, I'm going to stop at Lux Bar and get lunch after. Oh,
Yeah.
and, you know, people are missing that. So I think when they do open the doors again, I'm pretty optimistic. I'm always a hopeless optimist. You can ask both my ex-wives. But I think we're going to see, you know, just like the beaches in California were packed the other weekend. You know, I think healthy or not healthy, people are missing that. And I think we're going to see a return to that, especially, you know, there's nothing better than summer in Chicago with the weather turned and everything. So let's knock on wood for that. Okay. Last major question until we go to some audience questions here. And we don't have to spend too long on this, but is there some advice that any of you could give to smaller operators, people that have 1 or 2 shops? You know, what would you say to them if you could, you know, coming from a little bit more experience and a little bit larger background? Feel free, anybody chime in.
I would say a couple things. One, if you haven't already, get out in front of your bank and your landlord. Hopefully they've done that. Secondly, you know, even if you're closed or at a reduced level of operations, what can you do to make your business better during this time? And, you know, plans for reopening, you know, laying out that your sanitation and hygiene plan, but other simple things if they don't require a whole lot of investment. Training, you know, we're doing stuff in terms of using our learning management system and doing online training for our people. We are, you know, anything that can be done to the facility to improve it and upgrade it, that again doesn't require a lot of investment. We have a facilities team on staff, so they're, you know, sanding and restaining bars, or you know, tightening up the furniture, doing any little thing that they can do to make the place look clean and nice and beautiful. And so when we do reopen, it looks almost new.
Great.
Yeah, I would say that's a good point. We do have a couple of our owners of properties that are trying to use this time, and maybe they got part of that PPP loan, and they're trying to use some of those funds towards making sure the hotel looks brand new, basically, when they reopen. And I think that's great, because you're also able to bring a few people back to help with that. My thing would be stay really flexible in how you're thinking about what your business was and what it could be. And sometimes, you know, examples are there are people with weddings that were going to happen in the next few months. And outside of just saying cancel that wedding, you can say, well, why not create a smaller wedding? We're doing something here called Le Petit Mariage, where it's like a small wedding, and they're just having their immediate family, and then they're going to do the bigger party in a year from now or 6 months from now, right? But
Sure.
They don't have to lose the meaning of what they were trying to do, which was get married and have that as their close family. So creating different type of packages or different type of experiences that could fit into the new normal that we have now, without losing the meaning of what you're trying to do, which, you know, I think there's something to be said about having that flexibility and showing your customers you're willing to work with them to figure it out.
I think those are all very good points.
I couldn't agree with that. Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. It's like, you know, going back to the whole principle of people first, and understanding that that translates in so many different ways and so many different facets of the business that we're in, and understanding that you're going to have some flexibility in your business model in order to survive this. And it is tremendously inspiring to see all these things happen. Like what Nabil pointed out, of instead of just canceling the wedding, find ways to be malleable, find ways to be open and honest with your customers and bringing them back in. We're doing something very similar in our hotels and our restaurants. But yeah, it all boils down to people first and becoming a part of the solution instead of you know, just part of the problem.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, that's great. I know that in our business, and it's a little bit different because it's a second tier to the hospitality business, but I know that when we went through, a recession in 2008, we just focused on, getting small jobs for clients, finding new clients. And we know that they're not going to be buying a brand new sound system or a video system right now, but, let's get them on a service package. Let's clean their amplifiers once a month for $100 a month. And let's be there for them so that when business does come back, because it always does come back, we're on the tip of their tongue and we're the people they trust and provide. And honestly, Scott and Steve, that's when we met you guys. We started off with real little stuff, it was 2008, 2009, and we were there for you. So I think, keeping an open mind about what your business model is and not looking necessarily for the home run, right, is good advice to any business owner out there.
Well, and just to add to that, to echo sort of Nabil, experiment, try things, be creative. Again, if it doesn't cost too much, if there's not a lot of investment, try different things, throw stuff at the wall, see what works.
Right. Right. Great. Okay, guys, we have a few questions from our audience if we're, for a few more minutes, if that's okay. Question number one, for sanitation, how is that expense being handled? The cost of the following CDC guidelines is quite high, and our insurance is taking care of any of this expense. Feel free to jump in, any one of you.
So in terms of, so I'm looking at sanitation in a couple different ways. Currently what we're doing, the masks, the gloves, the thermometers, all that stuff that we're doing, I don't see that going away anytime soon. However, I do believe that once we reinvite guests back into our operations, we will probably bring in some sort of remediation company to, disinfect our front of the house facilities. Whether some of that's for optics, and I think some of it's also nobody knows, which brings to the next side, insurance. So I happen to have one of the only insurances that didn't have the viral exclusion, and there's a case to be made that physical contamination and all these different things, but no, they've not been, they haven't been supportive of anything. I am considering filing a suit. We'll see. I'm in the process. We'll see if I actually file it. But then to actually disinfect our entire properties and have a sticker on the door or whatever says we did it, the second somebody with COVID walks in, it all means nothing, So, right. There's a lot of things that we're sort of thinking of, but ultimately we have to absorb those costs. There's just no way around it. So, there's I think one other cost that a lot of people, somewhat off the question, but a lot of people have been hearing about, not thinking about, and that the people that are essential workers right now. What they're doing is, not just in our restaurants, but in our food manufacturing. I've got a feeling that the way we treat and look at those people is also, not just us, but everybody is going to change. And I think that wages, benefits, everything is going to continue to increase for these people that are, not able to stay at home and wait out 2-3 weeks. So, to Steve's point, we're just we're looking at all, and you got to be nimble right now.
Yeah.
We'll figure out a way to put the cost in there somewhere. Yeah.
That kind of little bit leads into this next question. What are you doing to capture the attention of your customers during this downtime to build a loyal following? Again, audience question. I know we touched on that a little bit, and I put my 2 cents in. I know what we do in downtimes, but does anybody else have any further advice on that?
I will tell you that, we're very fortunate to work for a great family such as the Ricketts family, and everything that they've been doing around the Chicago market, opening up Wrigley Field as a food pantry, opening up some of the conference space as a blood drive. All this stuff has been in the paper, so it's nothing that we can't speak to, but even allowing opening up our hotel to the frontline responders and advocate, again, being a part of the solution and ensuring that, at the end of the day, it wouldn't have mattered if we got our name in the paper. It was the right thing to do.
Right.
And just ensuring that we got out in front of this, we're part of the community, and again, people first.
People first. I love that. Last question. We have it right here. Sorry. Oh, this is great. I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, but this is real direct, way more direct than it was. If we reopen and the state says your occupancy can only be 50% of what it was before, is that a realistic business model? Is that something that we know is short term and you're going to fight your way through, or do you just continue doing carry out for the next couple months?
I mean, we will open. We will fight our way through it. There may be a reduced menu. There may be fewer, there's certainly going to be fewer workers in the building. We are going to negotiate as best we can with our vendors, especially our landlords. If the government says I can only be open 50%, he devalued your property. And why should I pay more than 50% of my rent? That argument hasn't worked so far, but we'll have to struggle through it.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I think you just gotta, your point, my occupancy costs aren't going to go down 50% most likely, nor will my utilities. My will, there are things that will, but ultimately you have to consider whether you're going to double the prices, which is realistic. And that's going to reflect on sales tax and everything else. It's going to work its way down the system. So I would imagine that if that happens, it's going to be temporary. But I don't know if there's a real great answer to it. What I will say, though, is we are talking about, growing up, I always heard about the early bird special, right?
Yeah.
We may, our biggest challenge, most restaurants hope to be full from, 6 p.m. to 8, unless you're Gibsons, and you're expecting to be full all the time. But there are hours where it's not such a big deal to have a social distance. And you may find that you're able to spread out your customers throughout the day versus just prime time. So once again, though, you have to alert your guests and try to drive them to those times.
Well, like in many Southern European countries, it's very common to eat dinner at 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
So, maybe we do see a future where, because of the social distancing, because you can only have 50% occupancy, maybe dinner starts at 5, but it goes till 11:30 at night, and people are kind of cool with that. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's funny because the carry-out business, we've seen the window shrink to like an hour and a half. Everybody wants to eat during that same hour and a half, but
sure,
you could be right, Tim. We'll see.
We'll see. I know that a friend of mine, their carry-out, their kitchen is so backed up just in carry-outs that they're having to tell people on the phone when they order and they expect to pick food up in 25 minutes that they have to wait for an hour and a half to pick food up, and she just can't physically put more staff in her kitchen. It's a small kitchen. So, right. It was kind of an interesting, I didn't expect that, but well, guys.
Tim, I was gonna throw in just from a hotel occupancy point of view. We're looking at things also differently because we don't know what the customer. In general, we believe if customers are staying for 2 or 3 nights in the immediate term, we probably won't even service those rooms. So you're gonna have a different staffing model on how you clean rooms, when you clean rooms. When people check out, we might have to typically wait 72 hours before we go into that room to clean it, and or have different protocols in place. So the staffing model is going to look way different, and the guests, we might not be able to handle a full hotel anyway because it's just not physically feasible at this time. So it's very similar to what the restaurants are going through. We're going to have less occupancy for a foreseeable future.
Got it. Yeah. We're actually blowing up on the chat. One last thing is, what technologies do we see being put in place? Thermal cameras, mobile devices, which Nabil, you touched on. Any thoughts on those? I mean, I know I've been approached by certain restaurant groups about thermal cameras and, that measure skin temperature, stuff like that. What are your
We're
guys'
using,
thoughts on that?
we're going to be using electrostatic sprayers. There's a big push on those. So those, I think, will give customers a sense of comfort and security that you're spraying down areas to disinfect them, basically. And so that'll I think create some confidence. And definitely the thermometers, masks, gloves, mobile orders and or check-in, I think, is going to be something that's going to happen pretty quickly in the next, my guess is 6 months to a year.
What about
Yeah, I do think
elevators?
it's going to expedite a lot of these different technologies that are out there already. Nabil pointed out mobile. Yeah, that's going to be more of the norm going in. Mobile key, where literally you're going to be able to use your phone to actually, you can bypass the front desk. You can go
Right.
straight up to your room after you check in mobily, and then your phone is your key. Like
Right.
these are the things that are just going to expedite the necessity of them. You're seeing a lot of hydrogen peroxide phones be used in rooms. The airlines really started to use these in all of their airplanes, but you're going to see a complete difference in how you're actually cleaning the rooms and the meeting rooms and the guest rooms. You can see a lot more single service, pencils, reuse, or things that are more disposable for meeting planners that you can't reuse. And then the restaurant business, I don't know what that looks like yet. It's going to be really interesting. And, obviously I trust people like Scott and, the one-offs and Bogas and even the Gibsons group of the world to really pioneer what that will look like and to really see how far this goes.
I got a question for you guys. How are you going to approach your elevator situation? Steve, especially you, how are people going to get upstairs to Gibsons Italia?
Yeah, that's, fewer bodies allowed in the elevator, and somebody, sanitizing it constantly. Not ideal.
You're going to need an elevator attendant, like back in the day.
Yeah. That's a reality.
We're thinking that for Utopian. We're just, how do you socially distance in a 6-foot elevator?
You don't.
Yeah.
You have to have masks.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably everybody's going to be wearing masks for the future. So,
Well, guys, this has been great. We've gone way over the time I think that we were initially budgeting for this. So I really want to thank you guys, everybody. Steve, Scott, Nabil, Nathaniel. Thank you to Paradigm Next, who helped us put this together. And then also TMI, who got us a bunch of PR on this. Really, thank you guys. This has been excellent.
yeah,
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank
good
you,
luck
everyone.
to everybody out there, and
Yes.
stay safe, stay healthy.
Stay
Yes,
safe, stay healthy,
absolutely.
and let's all work together to get through this together.
Thank
All
you.
right.
I appreciate
care.
it, guys. Have a great one.
Bye.